We're going to be talking about the penis. We'll be talking about the penis. Do you think that's funny, butthead? Do you find it amusing that we'll be talking about the penis?
In the wide world of strange online personalities, Kairo Seijuro is a name that most likely doesn't hold much significance in comparison to other well-known characters online. Outside of the relatively niche group of people who followed his online antics and his brief stint as a person of interest in a viral internet video, his story still remains as one of the more obscure internet tales. The story of a seemingly normal man whose success led to a trail of lies being unraveled and an untimely death. So what actually happened to Kairo Seijuro, the subway shogun? The story of Kairo Seijuro is a difficult one to tell, mainly because, outside of some very basic details, all of the info supposedly known about Kairo is based off of second-hand statements made by third parties about his past. Because of this, I've compiled all of the info I could find on the topic, and will try to create a semi-chronological timeline of events based on that knowledge. In the year 1986, in the city of Clear Lake, California, a young man by the name of Kenneth Anthony Jacintho was born into a family of 4, his 2 parents, an older brother, and a younger one. Kenneth has admitted that from a young age he had a fascination with blades, such as swords, daggers, and sharp kitchen utensils. It's this love for all things sharp that fueled his dedication to master the art of swordplay in his later life. At the age of just 9, Kenneth claims that he would leave his life in America and would travel to Japan, where he would, for the better part of 15 years, study the art of katana wielding under his master, Kairo Seijuro. During this time, he became self-sufficient and would find himself inducted into the ranks of a group of highly trained and deadly katana practitioners. But after 15 years of hard training and time spent in the land of the rising sun, he would choose to return to the United States, but not as Kenneth Anthony Jacintho, but instead Kairo Seijuro. After spending 15 years in another country from such a young age, Kairo would see his master Hiko as a parental figure, as well as a skilled master, so he took his last name. The name Kairo was chosen allegedly because he believed the word represented the term energy or spirit. There's very little actual evidence to verify this story, along with the fact that it also features a couple of strange elements that call into question the story's legitimacy. There is one person, however, who has claimed that this entire chain of events has been falsified by Kairo, that being his older brother. His older brother would claim that from a young age, Kenneth would begin displaying worrying patterns of behaviour that manifested in abusive outbursts against his younger brother and himself. The only true claim originating from Kairo's recollection of events was allegedly the fact that he did indeed like knives and blades, so much to the point that he would chase his brothers around the house with knives and sharp kitchen utensils. The claim that Kairo allegedly lived in Japan for 15 years was also denied by his older brother, who claimed he was instead living in a handful of different foster homes due to his abusive and worrying antics, which his family would quickly become unable to deal with. With 2 very different statements of differing validity, it's not easy to truly know what's true and what's false in the early life of Kairo Seijuro, but for most, his early life is almost completely irrelevant, as he would find himself at the centre of viral video fame in 2012 that would see him play the role of vigilante peacekeeper, which would make his early life, and the dubious claims he would make, almost completely irrelevant. Kairo Seijuro's love for katanas extended into his everyday life, so much to the point that he would carry one with him everywhere he went. So when he found himself travelling by light rail at 2 AM on the 13th of October 2012, he would put his skills to use in a very surprising way.
Now to an amazing scene caught on tape. Look at this. A sword-wielding vigilante comes to the rescue on light rail. He stops two men from beating up another man. Now police are taking a closer look, and we are as well.
On that date, a fight between three men would break out that saw one of the men be brutally beaten down by the other two. While the argument between the two parties had apparently been going on for over 20 minutes before the first punches were thrown, almost as soon as the confrontation became physical and violent, Kairo Seijuro would spring into action, drawing his sword on the assailants and warding off their continued attacks. The two men would leave quickly after being met with Kairo's blade, and while frightened and surprised passengers looked on, Kairo assumed his battle stance, successfully fending off the angry party, successfully defusing the situation, and potentially saving the other man's life. The video footage of this situation was later posted to YouTube, where it would go viral. After the video's upload, many were left to wonder who the man wielding the sword was. Who exactly was this faceless, Aiden Pierce-esque vigilante travelling the light rails at 2 in the morning? And it would be a news interview with the channel MBC12 that would reveal to the public the face and name of Mr. Seijuro.
Kairo Seijuro wasn't looking for trouble on the light rail that night, but trouble certainly found him. When that fight broke out, he was ready for it with his trusty katana.
I actually carry this because I've become a little bit more dangerous than without it than with it. So it's more of a restraint mechanism than a safety blanket. To them, they probably thought I was just moving out of the way, but I was actually setting up to where their blind spot was. If he had gone on me, I was planning to go in completely, drop the sword down, and then completely cut it, completely gave him open.
In the notorious interview, Kairo describes the situation, claiming that he had devised a plan that accounted for all possible variables if any of the foes chose to resist. He showed off the sword that he had used during the scuffle, and would say many infamous lines that would become synonymous with his online presence.
This is about what you saw on the train. It's folded, tempered, and it does its job.
While the original video garnered many views, this interview is still the most well-known video associated with Kairo, as it was the first exposure the public got to the man himself, hearing his voice and seeing his face. While he came off as slightly awkward, maybe even slightly egotistical, and a massive weeaboo, many were still impressed by his response to the situation and genuinely saw him as somewhat of a hero, defending and potentially even saving a man's life from the brutal beatdown of two people who were focusing all of their aggression on one man. He genuinely did take action and keep a calm head in a situation most people wouldn't even think of putting themselves in, and for that he received a lot of praise. However, not everyone who was aware of the situation had nice things to say about Kairo Seijuro during this period of time, and one of those people who wanted to speak out about the positive attention he was receiving during this time was a YouTube channel by the name of Samurai Guy Truth. The owner of that channel was claiming to be Kairo's own older brother. Up until this point, pretty much all of the info we have and that you've seen earlier in this video on Kairo's early life is gleaned from the descriptions of this YouTube channel, which is why I have to make it clear that there is no guarantee this info is truly genuine, but in order to document the story, it has to be mentioned. Samurai Guide Truth YouTube channel was created only days after the news coverage of the viral video featuring Kairo Seijuro swept the internet, and still exists to this day. Only housing 4 videos which were all uploaded on the same day as the channel's original creation, each video serves to either expose Kairo or belittle him. While the content of the videos themselves is relatively basic, filmed with a low quality camera, the owner of the channel also elected to feature long diatribes in the description of each video, giving context to the clips and further criticising Kairo for perceived slights. For example, one video featured on the channel sees the creator enter Kairo's bedroom and criticise the messy living conditions, claiming that Kairo criticises the people he lives with for being dirty, branding him a hypocrite in the title. Another video on the channel sees the cameraman covertly film an argument taking place between Kairo and his at-the-time girlfriend, as the cameraman stands in another room recording the audio silently through the walls. A third video shows the state of their living conditions after Kairo allegedly began smashing stuff out of anger. The video's description provides more context for why this took place, and gives us a look into the potentially fractured family dynamic behind the video. The description reads, "By the way, this was over him not wanting to admit he lied about something he was caught dead lying about, his past. I'm his brother. I know him, and he never lived in Japan for 15 years in a Japanese death squad. He was in a foster home because he was abusing our younger brother and chasing me with knives." The description of the video featuring the vocal argument between Kairo and his girlfriend reads, "Before I moved in, this was every day. I had to sit in fear knowing there was nothing I could do but take the verbal route afterwards. They are not together anymore. Someone needs a wake-up call. He is an evil person." While there's very little evidence to genuinely guarantee that the person behind this channel is telling the truth, outside of the fact that he did indeed know Kairo personally, the comments of these videos are full of overwhelming support for Kairo, with many people personally criticising the channel's owner for many reasons. One commenter who claimed to know Kairo personally left a comment that said, "I used to be friends with Kairo and talked to Kairo prior to his death, and he told me that this GF of his was a psychopath, that she used to have bipolar episodes where 1 minute she was fine and the next she would flip out. He told me that multiple times during their relationship she would throw things at him, and that she had also multiple times came after him with knives. He also said she even managed to cut him a few times. He said in the end he broke up with her even though he didn't want to, because he woke up in the middle of the night to see her standing over him with a knife." While the Samurai Guy YouTube channel was trying to show the wider YouTube audience that Kairo wasn't the hero that the media had portrayed him as, this would all become irrelevant, as tragedy would strike in the near future.
All right, Elisa, it's now 6:02. Now to an update on a story that you first saw as breaking news on Live at 10. A somber start to a nice stretch of warm weather in Lake Geneva. A kayaker drowned after trying to save a woman's life.
On the 2nd of September 2016, at 6:15 p.m, police dispatchers received a call from a 16-year-old girl who had been out on the water kayaking with a friend. During their trip, they had both fallen into the water. While the girl was able to return to land and alert authorities, her friend wasn't able to, and that friend was Kairo Seijuro. The story goes that the two of them were venturing by kayak to a small landmass off the coast, known as Sunflower Island or Monitor Island, where they intended to train swords together. This story is corroborated by the fact that when calling the police, not only did she identify herself as Kairo's apprentice, but also didn't identify him by his legal name, but instead the name Kairo Seijuro. They set off on the journey, but the weather on that specific date was less than ideal for kayaking, not to mention the fact that this specific body of water that they had begun travelling through was notoriously dangerous, and had up until that point already claimed 4 lives in that same year. As they continued, the conditions worsened. A mixture of winds, and large waves slapping against the kayak caused it to capsize, sending them and their belongings into the harsh waters. At this point, accounts of what truly happened are sparse. Some claim Kairo helped the girls stay above water. Others claim he attempted to retrieve their lost items, which had floated to the bottom of the water. What we know for sure is, however, that the two of them would try to swim back to their kayak, but due to the current and the rough winds, it was moving too fast in the opposite direction to retrieve. No one knows how long this went on for, but after a while, Kairo, who was succumbing to the harsh waters, would begin sinking under the waves. He would utter his last word, "No," and sink under completely, and wouldn't come back up. The girl would return to land, where she would notify authorities, and a search party was sent out to try and find Kairo's body. However, they were unable to find him. Only a few days later, on a Monday, that same week, his body was recovered after a woman kayaking had found him floating in the water, and only a half an hour later, he was retrieved and his body brought back to land. During the initial search for Kairo's corpse, the team was able to find the kayak and 2 katanas which were strapped to the side. Kairo Seijuro would go on to be cremated. Some internet users have questioned the optics of this situation, sensing that an adult bringing a young girl to a secluded landmass might have correlated to some form of foul play, but many have also defended Kairo on this front, due to the fact that he didn't show any signs of deviancy in his past. Kairo Seijuro was a pariah, the kind of person who would mostly remain on the outskirts of society in any other form. However, he would find himself becoming somewhat of an inspiration to online users, who saw him as a selfless vigilante in the viral video that put him on the map. While his story is shrouded in mystery, and some have called into question the details of his true character, to this day, he is still seen as the subway samurai, a man who metaphorically and physically lived and died by the sword. While the ending of his story was tragic, many see his story as somewhat fitting when viewed in conjunction to the stories we hear of samurai of the past. He wasn't cut down by an equal fighter, but instead Mother Nature, arguably the most skilled opponent of all. His sword left at the bottom of the ocean, signifying his presence in this world, and waiting for the next fateful swordman to wield it.